7.5 is on timelines. Now, timeline is really just a visual representation of the whole situation, and it's always much easier if you do have a picture of a situation. So you can always use a timeline, but there are certain cases where you absolutely have to use a timeline. If you are either depositing or withdrawing unequal amounts, not the same every time, and at unequal intervals, then a timeline is crucial. You need a picture of the whole situation in order to do your calculations. So I'm not going to write all the words because your question will usually be in words, your situation will be in words. I'm going to already start the timeline and talk through the words as I go. So timeline is literally what it says. It's a line that shows how time goes. So today would count as time 0. So my story goes that I deposit 1,000 rand. So that counts as today. 3 years later, I deposit another 750 rands. 3 years later, or then 6 years after the initial deposit, so you have to read carefully, I withdraw 300 rands. 10 years after the initial deposit, I deposit another 1,000 rand. And I want to know, 12 years after today, how much will I have in the bank? Right, what's missing in this question? The interest rate. Now that's another nice thing, or not so nice always, is the interest rate changes. So we're going to say, our story told us that for the first 3 years, the interest rate was 6.5% quarterly, compounded quarterly. So instead of writing that, I prefer to already change this to a decimal and already put it over 4. Then it's ready for my formula. Now it says for the next 2 years, so from time 3 up to time 5, the interest rate was 7.2% compounded monthly. So I change it to that and I put it over 12. So can you see my curly brackets at the bottom indicate the timeline for the interest rates. Then it says for the rest of time, right up to time 12, it is 7.8% compounded semi-annually or biannually, in other words, twice a year. Now, different amounts, different interest rates. There's not just one big formula that can do this. So when you do your calculations, concentrate. Let's start with the first amount. What happened to this 1,000 rand? Well, for 3 years, it compounded at that interest rate. Now remember, 3 times the 4. But then afterwards, it stayed in the bank. So we just keep going at the next interest rate. And you multiply these. Right, now it's got to be 12 times how many years? 2. And then you keep going, you multiply by the last interest rate for the time period. How many years was that? 7 times the 2 times the twice per year. So that takes care of the original 1,000 rand. Then what happened to the 750? I deposited it, so it was a plus. Now you do the same. So 1 plus 750 was deposited when the interest rate was 7.2% monthly. That interest rate just lasted for 2 years. Thereafter, the rate changed to 7.8% semi-annually, and this 750 stayed in for the full 7 years. 7 times 2. Right, can you see we're going from left to right? Then I withdrew the 300, so that is a minus. And you see its interest rate that it would have had is the 0.078 over 2. But I withdrew it at times 6, so it's only 6 years times 2. Lastly, I deposit another 1,000, so it's a plus. It's only on this last interest rate, and it's only for 2 years. And there's the whole calculation. Thereafter, you just use your calculator. So your timeline has to be neat, correct, has to indicate everything, the times, the amount of money, the interest rates, and you have to concentrate when you're doing the formula. In other words, for the 300 rand that you withdrew, you would not use the 7.2% or the 6.5%. Because that happened before that time. These are really very simple if you just do it properly.